It took 9 months to reach a power-sharing deal, and the cabinet still remains without a Minister of Interior or Defense.
We asked the politicians, where are all the promises you made before the elections? You said Baghdad will be better than Dubai. We want basic services, electricity and water. We want jobs. We elected them. It's not like we want to bring down the government.
Inspired by regional uprisings, Iraqis have been taking to the streets across the country, their demands focusing on widespread corruption and poor services. The government's heavy-handed response putting to test what was portrayed as the region's fledgling democracy. Acknowledging failure, the leader of the cross-sectarian alliance, Iraqiyya,
my fear is that
Iyad Allawi has told us he rejected a position created to include him because power sharing is a myth in Iraq and that protesters' demands are justified.
Including ourselves, we felt really in responding to the demands and desires of the Iraqi people, and we felt miserably, all of us, in getting the country moving forward. Sectarianism, politicizing religion, unemployment, no services. The third of the Iraqi people are living under the poverty line.
Many here say the very basis on which the modern Iraqi state was built is flawed.
Our laws, constitution and institutions need to be fixed so as not to be based on the interest of the sectarian blocs, rather on the interests of the Iraqi people.
Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has promised to look into the protesters' demands, but some say it's too little too late. They're not abandoning the streets until they see tangible results. Rawi Rageh, AlJazeera, Baghdad.
Now in Bahrain, there have been a fresh lot of protests involving Shia Muslims. They want new rights and they're protesting directly at the Sunni royal family. Around 200 Shias have been rallying outside the US Embassy this time, calling for Washington to stop backing the monarchy. Protesters have been camping at Manama's Pearl Roundabout since last month, but their stands won them only minor concessions so far. Now the leader, the ruler of Oman, Sultan Qaboos, has ordered a major cabinet reshuffle after weeks of anti-government protests there. State television saying the Sultan has named several new key ministers in posts which include the economy. The move appears to be the latest in a string of concessions aimed at appeasing protesters as people demand more jobs and political reforms. Now, a royal tale with a twist. Britain's Prince Andrew and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, are in the spotlight over their close friendship with a convicted US sex offender. What's going on, Stephen?
Well, the Duke of York is being criticised for his links with a businessman called Jeffrey Epstein. And that's been confirmed that his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson did get some financial help from him. She's promised today in London to pay him back. But the UK Prime Minister David Cameron has given his full support to the Prince as the country's trade envoy, despite the continuing row. Paul Brennan reports.
As the UK's special representative on trade, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, has spent the past decade travelling the world promoting British business interests internationally. Speaking on Al Jazeera in 2008, the Duke described his patriotic pride in the role.
I've taken on the business community in this country as a champion for them. And I believe it's very important that they should get the best advantage and the best opportunities, because our competitors in other nations will do exactly the same thing.
Achieving the best business opportunities can be far from straightforward. But Prince Andrew's close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, the American billionaire convicted on underage sex charges in 2008, is highly questionable. And the recent emergence of this 2001 photo of the Prince with one of Epstein's teenage masseurs has further damaged Andrew's credibility. Consider this, though. In 2005, the German car giant Volkswagen was found to have been operating a $2 million slush fund to pay for brothel visits, Viagra tablets and shopping trips. And it wasn't until 2008 that Deutsche Bank told its executives that payments to prostitutes would no longer be regarded as legitimate business expenses. By comparison, the Prince's conduct appears blameless.
the reality is that many people in business are working in a world where corruption and prostitution are part and parcel of how deals have to get done. And this is the unfortunate nexus that Prince Andrew finds himself part of. But you have to say that he hasn't exercised particularly good judgment, particularly given the key role that the royal family has in representing standards in public life.
And that fact, above all others, is perhaps the most relevant.
The standards required of the royal family, of the monarchy, are rather higher than those required perhaps of salesmen for British exports abroad.
The Prince, fourth in line to the British throne, has enjoyed a difficult relationship with the British media, and on Monday the Prime Minister's office came out and contradicted newspaper reports that Andrew's trade role was being reviewed. The Prince cannot be sacked from his unpaid position, but there remain some who would like to see him resign voluntarily. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera.
The trial of the former French President Jacques Chirac has opened in Paris. The 78-year-old is accused of misusing public funds during his time as mayor of Paris from 1995 to 2007. But proceedings have already been delayed by an appeal from a co-defendant. A judge will rule on Tuesday, which could see the trial postponed for months. Tim Friend has more on the story.
In typical style, Jacques Chirac always insisted that he wanted to be treated like any other person facing trial. But that's unlikely to happen. The 78-year-old, one of France's longest-serving presidents, seems to grow in popularity with the French public, who view him with a particular fondness, the envy of other politicians. This is despite the fact that he's the first former head of state to face criminal charges since the Fifth Republic was founded half a century ago. A judge is now considering last-minute attempts to delay the trial for being unconstitutional. But Mr. Chirac says he plans to appear if it goes ahead.
The French president has always maintained that he wants to explain himself, and he'll say this better than I, what he judges necessary to say.
The agonizing wait goes on for Jacques Chirac, but soon he will know whether he must face trial. This is an historic moment in French politics, the prospect of one of its longest-serving presidents facing a term in jail. He's now in fragile health. His wife, Bernadette, dismissed reports that he's suffering from Alzheimer's disease, but he may find a court appearance arduous. The abuse of public funds charges spring from his time as mayor of Paris and salaries paid to so-called phantom employees at the town hall. The money was used as part of Chirac's drive for further power in the 1990s, at the end of his 18-year term as mayor.
Well, he finished his term as mayor of Paris in 1995, and after that he won 2 presidential elections in 1995 and in 2002. Now, the French public was very much aware of these very serious allegations against him of corruption, but it's a cultural problem in France. I think the French press is not strong enough. It didn't do a good job of holding